National American League teams. So it's only fitting to go to the National League, see what's going on there, see what my personal rankings of the teams are. So yeah. All right, we're gonna start off at the bottom here, and no surprise if you watch my show. To me, the undisputed worst team in the National League is going to be the Colorado Rockies. Yeah, they're really bad. They don't really have any redeeming qualities to them right now. No superstar to build around. Not really anything. I mean, Nolan Jones broke out a little bit last year, but that was kind of it. They're really bad. I don't know what to say here, man. The Rockies really bad. I don't want to spend much time on them, so I won't. They're not that good. 14, we have another one of these really bad teams, which is the Nationals. The Nationals, I will say, unlike the Rockies, have a core building. They have a lot of good young players coming up through the ranks. I've talked about them on the show a little bit, like James Wood, Robert Hassel III. You have Mackenzie Gore, who's already made an impact. You have Josiah Gray, who broke out. C.J. Abrams. So they still have a younger core, but at the same time, it's still not great, and they need a lot of pitching help, and they just need help overall. Again, they're a young team, so I'm not expecting them to do that well, but I think they could make some noise if everything goes right, but I doubt it, because there's a lot of good teams in the NL. All right, at 13 here, we are going to be having the Miami Marlins. The Marlins made the playoffs last year, and in response of that, signed one major league free agent. So obviously they're not trying to contend for some odd reason. New general manager coming in, so I guess that was his vision. But yeah, not a great start for the Marlins for the offseason, and I'm not really high on them going into the season. They have good pitching, which always is going to help them. Yuri Perez, Jesus Luzardo, Braxton Garrett, who's also hurt a little bit, but he'll be fine. Even Sandy Alcantara, but obviously he's not going to play this year. So yeah, still a good team. It's just they didn't sign many people, so yeah, definitely not high in them going into the year. 12, I have the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates aren't a bad team, I definitely will say. I think they have a lot of redeeming qualities about them with how young the team is. They have a good amount of young players for the core, like Andy Rodriguez, Henry Davis, guys like that. But, they still need a lot of work around the edges. The pitching is kind of rough. And again, I just think overall depth is a problem. Just not great, but I think they're building something. And the NL Central is kind of weak, and I wouldn't be surprised if they make a surprise run and go towards the top of the standings. 11 here, I'm going to be having their NL Central counterpart, the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers have not had a great offseason, in my opinion. They traded Corbin Burns. They haven't added much. I was expecting them to compete. As I've said this multiple times now on the podcast, but I still want to mention it because it's still flabbergasting me. They signed Rhys Hoskins, which I thought was a win-now move, considering it's not a long-term deal. It's a 1-year, 2-year deal. Trying to nurse him back to health, get him back to being a big league bat. But instead, you then, right after, trade Corbin Burns. So I was very confused what the Brewers' plan was, but I think it's clear now that they are rebuilding. The pitching is not good whatsoever. Freddie Peralta and Wade Miley are fine pitchers, but they just cannot be your 1 and 2 if you're trying to compete. And I think it's pretty clear that they aren't. So not a great start. I'm not very high in the Brewers going into the year. Definitely not. And hopefully they can prove me wrong, and we'll see if they're trying to rebuild or go for it. But personally, for me, I'm just not a fan, and I have them at 11. Again, they're not a horrible team, but it's just there's a lot of good teams in baseball right now, which is good. So, moving into the top 10 here, we have the St. Louis Cardinals. So the Cardinals, a lot of people might think this is a little low for them. As you guys have heard on the podcast, if you are a listener, I am not high in the Cardinals whatsoever. I hated their offseason move. I hated it. I think this is a pretty clear move for this offseason that you had to get an ace-level pitcher and 2 other good ones, and instead you get Sonny Gray, who's a fine pitcher, but I don't think he's an ace. And then for the fine pitchers, you get Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn, who, with all due respect to them, are fossils at this point in their career. They're not that good. I don't know what redeeming qualities they have, except of pitching mediocre innings in a lot of them. they're inning eaters who pitch mediocre innings. Like I don't know why I don't know why the Cardinals did it. It makes me extremely frustrated as a baseball fan because the Cardinals have so much potential with the bats they have. They have such good bats, and instead of signing a guy like Montgomery, like Snell, I mean even Yamamoto, you probably wouldn't have signed Yamamoto, but you had a connection to him with him being best friends with Lars Nootbaar. Like you could have at least made an offer. Like you're the Cardinals. It's not. I understand you're in Missouri and you're maybe a small market team, but you're a historic team. You're a team that has a long outlook for their future, for their past. Sorry, and it just makes no sense for me that they would do this. And I don't know. It's kind of spitting on the Cardinals' name a little bit, and I hated what they did this offseason. I really, really did. Number 9, we have the San Diego Padres. The Padres, again, aren't a bad team. They have a lot of good players on their team. It's just an overall depth, in my opinion. The pitching is a big, big question mark. They got some good players back in the Soto trade, but, Yu Darvish is getting older. I don't know. Joe Musgrove hasn't performed up to his standards a little bit. And, again, Michael King, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, Jairo Iarte. These are good players, but they're not, Pedro Avila, but they're not real difference makers. And if you're trying to compete, especially in a division as tough as the NL West, you'll see where I have the NL West teams. It's not good in my opinion. Like you can't be having those guys pitching. I would add another pitcher if I was them. I mean, Michael Lorenzen's still out there. You could add him. So I think they have a lot of good players. It's just the fact of overall depth, overall pitching as well. I think that's really the problem. Not a very high in the Padres. 8, I have the Giants here. Now I want to say I think you can swap the Giants and Padres. I think both are fairly even. But I think both are fairly even. But at the same time, I do have the Giants above them just because I trust in the overall team more, if that makes sense. Even though the pitching is not good right now, they've shown creative ways in the past to get around it. Maybe that'll change with Bob Melvin being there. But, when they do come back, you're getting guys like Alex Cobb, like Keaton Wynn, like Robbie Ray. Those guys are real difference makers, in my opinion. And I think they're going to help a lot in the second half of the season. And if you can merely survive in the first half, you have a lot of good bats. I think it's possible that you could make a playoff run. And you could be in the running for it. Again, I think Padres, Giants are kind of just interchangeable, but I had the Giants over them just because I trust them a little bit more. Next, we have the Mets at number 7. I think people are going to be looking at this as way too high for the Mets. Maybe I'm biased. I'm a Mets fan. I don't think so. I feel like that's what they all say. But I love what the Mets did this offseason. I'm really high on Luis Severino, on Sean Manaea, on a bullpen on like Shintaro Fujinami. I don't think the Senga injury should hurt them that much. I think they have the depth to combat it. I think the overall fact is just how will that depth perform. I'm still high on Senga. I don't think he'll miss that much time. So I don't think it's going to be horrible for them. And I'm looking forward to see what the Mets can do. They still have a lot of good bats. I mean, Pete Alonso, Lindor, Alvarez, Marte, Nimmo, still a lot of good bats. And I think people are underrating them. They're also forgetting that I shouldn't say we, but they're getting the best closer in baseball back. And I think that's definitely a part of it. So I have them on the just the outside of the playoffs right now. Kind of the same thing as the Giants, Padres, and Cardinals, teams that could make the playoffs, but I don't have them making it right now, just for personal preference on how good I think they are. Number 6 here, which is now going into the actual playoffs of it. I have the Chicago Cubs. With the Cubs, I think there's a lot of question marks, but overall, I do like the team. I think re-signing Bellinger was a big help for their chances. You got a nice core there. You got Michael Busch, Matt Mervis. You have Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, a great middle of the order guys. Christopher Morel at third, Nick Madrigal. You have Bellinger, of course, Pico Armstrong, who I'm very high on, of course, if you've listened to the podcast. The pitching is good. Justin Steele turned out to be an ace, and I think he could repeat that. After that, Jordan Wick's a nice young player. Tyone could bounce back. Shoto Imanaga is the big question mark. If he performs well, I think this team becomes so much better. But there are a lot of question marks involving him. So overall, I think the Cubs are a pretty good team, but there are a good amount of question marks here. Kind of the same with them and all the teams from 6 to 10. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how they do perform, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it and seeing what happens with them. Going to the top 5 here now. Number 5, we have the Cincinnati Reds. Yeah, I'm really high on the Reds. I mean, I'm gonna say it again. If you've listened to the podcast, you know I'm really high on the Reds. I really love this young team that they have assembled together. I'm a big believer in their bats. Matt McClain, Ellie De La Cruz, Heimer Candelario, they also signed. Novelli Marte, who could come up, Spencer Steer, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Jonathan India. They have a lot of good young bats, and I think the pitching was really improved this offseason as well. You know, you guys like Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo already there, who are young players who have turned out to be really good. But then, you know, you add guys like Nick Martinez, like Frankie Montas. You have Graham Ashcraft there. So yeah, I really do like the Reds. They added to the bullpen as well, which is already pretty good, considering they have Alexis Diaz at the back end. So yeah, definitely high in the Reds, and I'm really interested in seeing how they do. But I have them winning the NL Central currently. Moving into the top 4 here now. These are the teams I really think are the elite teams of the NL. I think the top 2 are the true elite. I'm sure everyone knows the top 2 in the NL that I'm talking about. But the top 4, I think these are really the teams that I would look for as real World Series contenders. And starting that off is the Philadelphia Phillies. They haven't added much this offseason, which kind of prevents them going to the top 3 or top 2. But they still have a good team. I mean, they've made the NLCS the past 2 years, made the World Series the year before that. Great rotation. Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Taijuan Walker, Ranger Suarez. So still a good rotation. Bullpen needs some help, but it's not horrible. They still have Jose Alvarado in the back end there, Jeff Hoffman, Gregory Soto, guys like that who are still pretty good. I mean, what can we say about the lineup? It's amazing. We know this. It opens up a lot of possibilities now as well with Bryce Harper moving to first base. So yeah, definitely a really good team, and I think no surprise here that they're at top 4. Number 3, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks. I have them above the Phillies. I absolutely love the Diamondbacks of this offseason. I've said it so many times now. If you're listening, you might can get a headache from it, but I love what they've done. I mean, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, that's a true top 3 right there. After that, the lineup, I mean, Gabriel Moreno, you added Jock Peterson, you have added Eddie Eugenio Suarez, you know, you have Jordan Lawler who's going to come up as a young shortstop, you have Ketel Marte, you have Suarez now at manning third base, as I said, you have Corbin Carroll, you have all these young outfitters, Alec Thomas. So I'm really high in the Diamondbacks. I don't think them making it to the World Series is a fluke, and I think they're going to be a team that is going to be messed with for years to come. Number 2, I have, of course, the Atlanta Braves. The Braves and the other team we're going to talk about are obviously the top 2 in the NL. I don't think that's a big surprise here, but Atlanta's pretty great. Even as a Mets fan, I can admit that. I think they should have added more this offseason, which is why they're not first, but still really, really good. I don't know what else to say about the Braves here. We know how good they are. And number 1, of course, is the Dodgers. No surprise here. You add the best player in baseball to an already great team, and then you add Yoshinobu Yamamoto and James Paxton and Tyler Glasnow and Teoscar Hernandez. You're going to be the best team in the league and the best team in the NL. Overall, the best team in baseball. So, really great offseason by the Dodgers. Nothing much else to say there. And, they're the best team in the NL. I don't think that's a surprise. We're going to move to our fourth and final segment here, which is what we always do, which is news around the league. Some stories I want to talk about. So, we'll be talking about that. But first, let's go to a quick break, and then we'll see you after that. So, thanks.